welcome to the Way of the Movement Professionals. This is a series here on the Nexus Motions YouTube channel where I get to talk to some amazing people and learn more about them. Today, I'm with my friend Carrie Hall, who is a physical therapist and owner of SISU Physical Therapy and Mentoring Services. She has been a strong advocate and a servant leader in our profession and has served in several positions for the American Physical Therapy Association, the Washington chapter, including chair of the nominating committee for the private practice section. Carrie is currently a delegate for the state of Washington, and she's also served on the education committee for the Washington chapter. And right now, she's actually running for the secretary position for Washington chapter of the APTA. So if you are in Washington, please vote for Carrie Hall. You will definitely feel her passion for patient care, education, and serving people in general. Now, it would be very helpful if you hit the like button and the subscribe button below so that you'll be the first to know whenever I upload a new video here in the Nexus Motion YouTube channel. So thanks for watching and for your support. Please enjoy my conversation with Carrie Hall. Hey, Carrie, thank you so much for being here with me. We're going to get started with our first question here. I love asking people this question. How did you choose physical therapy as the area of study or major when you were an undergrad?
Oh boy. First of all, that was a long time ago, but I was thinking about that this morning actually, and it still almost feels like it was yesterday because I'm the first person in my family that has been interested in science, and it was just part of what I was always interested in. Middle school and high school, I gravitated toward science and math. And as I was kind of contemplating careers, this was back in the late 1970s. So women weren't super encouraged to go into medicine, particularly unless it was a nursing degree for sure. PT was not super, well known as a profession back then. But what I had decided after observing how my physicians kind of interacted with me. And then after shadowing in some PT clinics, I recognized that the relationship that PTs were having with their patients was very different from what the physician was able to, kind of develop with their patients. And so that was really drawing to me because not only was I fascinated with the human body and how movement worked, I was also very much interested in the kind of the psychosocial and the relationship part of working with patients. So the two seem to combine well. And then the other piece was that I also felt like it would give me the flexibility and autonomy to be able to someday, have a family and be able to be a good parent, and be able to manage a career at the same time. So I think it was all those things combined that sort of drew me. And I just never looked back. Once I made that decision, I never ever doubted the decision I made. I just fell more and more in love with the profession as the decades marched on.
That's awesome. Now, I noticed that you went to undergrad and graduate school both in St. Louis. Are you originally from St. Louis or from elsewhere?
No, I'm from Illinois. I'm from kind of Northwest Illinois, a little town called Crystal Lake, Illinois. But again, you have to go back to, I graduated high school in 1979. And back then, you didn't visit schools as a matter of course. You had like at most a brochure because this was pre-internet days, way pre-internet days. So at most you had a little trifold brochure of your of the schools that you were looking at. And because we were a very middle income family, I couldn't fly all over the country. So I knew I had to go somewhere that I could drive to. And so, and I also wanted to go to a program that was an entry level PT admit. So that really narrowed the kind of the focus for me. It really was between Marquette University in Milwaukee and St. Louis University in Missouri, were two programs that I could afford, I could drive to, and they were 4-year programs because you were admitted as a freshman, and you come out with your bachelor's in 4 years. So, and then the final deciding factor was the fact that I received a scholarship from St. Louis University and a scholarship loan from Marquette. So I was like, I'm going to take the one that I don't have to pay back. So that's what kind of got me to St. Louis. And they're both Jesuit schools, which I'm not, heavily into religion per se, but having that Jesuit education, I think that was another piece that really resonated for me in terms of the care and concern that I have for my community of patients because of that really strong Jesuit influence. So very happy with that decision.
Great. Now, along your long career in physical therapy, I'm sure many people have influenced you, but who are some of the key mentors in your physical therapy career?
Well, I would say in the very beginning, the person who gave me my very first job out of PT school was Dr. Steve Rose, who was sort of co-director of the program in physical therapy and the Irene Walter Johnson Rehabilitation Institute at the time. So when you were accepted, when I accepted the job at Irene Walter Johnson Rehabilitation Institute, I was also considered clinical faculty at WashU. And so Dr. Rose was very pivotal in helping me to kind of make that decision to get into education. And then along the way, right side by side with Dr. Rose was, of course, Shirley Sarman. But I also was blessed to be in the same cohort as Tony DeLito and Dave Cinecor and Linda Van Dillen, all of those individuals. And then my core team of PTs, with Mary Kate McDonald and Nancy Woolsey and Cheryl Caldwell and Renee Ivins. Those are all the people that I sort of came up, through the ranks with. They were all very influential in my early and middle stages of my career. And I think as I got older into my profession, it really started to switch to the people that I worked with, more so my patients and my team at Movement Systems. They started to teach me, so much on a daily basis. And then as I got more into advocacy, people like Sharon Dunn, being the APTA president for so long, she was huge influence on me. And so I've just sort of, over the years, depending on what my focus was sort of influenced, by different individuals inside and outside the profession. I think Brene Brown, who obviously I didn't ever get a chance to work with, but her work has heavily influenced me, for example. So that list could go on and on and on. But I think the early people in my career, Steve Rose and Shirley Sarman stand out amongst them all. So.
And I think it's so true that we can't do it alone, and it's always this guidance and the mentorship that makes us who we are. And I just feel so lucky to be with this very special group of people that help me become better, not just with physical therapy, but also just personal things. And we're very lucky to be connected with each other. Now,
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you have mentors like Steve Rose and Shirley Sarman, who it just sort of fed into my strongest value, which is curiosity, it's always the why, it just, well, why is it that way? And, why are you doing this? It's always looking kind of upstream, like, well, let's think about the underlying root, the kind of the underlying foundation, the root causes of these particular problems. And that just sort of fed into what I already valued, but then that just has grown, and blossomed, and it's just my driving force is my curiosity. And that really was very much nurtured by Steve Rose and Shirley, because they don't let you get away with not showing the work behind your thoughts. So, yeah.
Now, you had a very successful outpatient physical therapy clinic for 27 years, is that right? And that was in
Mhm.
Seattle, Washington.
Mhm.
Tell me, what was your favorite parts about being a clinic owner?
Wow, there were, I think one of the favorite things probably is that the fact that you get to wear all the hats. So when you're a small business owner, you don't have departments allocated, to HR and to finance and to regulatory compliance. You have to wear every single one of those hats. You have to make sure that you understand, all of those bits, even though you over time can hire people to help you manage those things. Like you said, you never do anything alone, but you still have to understand how those things function, and stay on top of them. And so I think it was just the sort of the vast nature of being a small business owner, and especially in healthcare and then in physical therapy specifically. There's just so much to know to be able to run a business successfully. So that may be part of it. And I think the other part was, what was really important to me was for all of the practitioners that joined Movement Systems Physical Therapy, which is the name of my company. I worked really hard to make sure that they felt nurtured in their professional development. And that didn't necessarily mean that it had to be, certainly not only the movement systems approach, but they were nurtured in other areas that they had an interest in. So education was always at the foundation of everything. And then also feeling nurtured to be entrepreneurial themselves, within the practice. I always kind of tried to lead my team that you're building your caseload in physical therapy, and let's try to support you in how you want that to look. Of course, we've got the way that the company runs and what our sort of practice management was. But within that, how do we nurture you to be able to be entrepreneurial, and to think outside the box, and just working with teams of my the practitioners as well as the administrative team. We were all sort of try to work collaboratively together. So I think being surrounded by so many, passionate people who always challenged me and tested me on a daily basis, kind of like your children do, to help me to grow as an individual, as a business owner. I was kind of an accidental business owner. I didn't really set out like, oh, I want to own this business. It was more that I just wanted to practice a certain way. And then people sort of joined me, but they really challenged me to become a business owner. And I owe them a lot of how I think and how I view the world today in terms of, the not only the practice of physical therapy, but how do we succeed as a business in physical therapy.
Now, more recently, you are providing primary care for the movement system for a small caseload of patients, and then also mentoring other physical therapists. And then also on top of that, you do some business consulting, all under SISU. And it seems like this is so great. You're able to impact not just your patients, but also this whole community, the wider community of physical therapists and business owners. So, how is this new chapter for you going?
Oh, this is the best. So how this was born out of is that I sold my company. I sold Movement Systems in 2021. And I stayed with the company that I sold it to for about 10 months, and then we parted ways. And when we parted ways, I sort of had to figure out, well, what is it? What am I going to do now? And everyone's like, are you going to retire? And I'm like, I'm too tired right now, but I'm not going to retire. I have to figure out what I'm going to do, but definitely not going to retire. Just have way too much left to give to this profession. And so the biggest stumbling block I had was, well, what do I even call what I'm going to do? And I had a lightning bolt epiphany moment listening to a podcast. And it was on the concept of SISU, which is a Finnish term that people are pretty much recognize that that means sort of perseverance and grit and tenacity. But what they don't know is that there's an other side to that coin, which is the compassion, the empathy, and the grace. And the two together create SISU. So you can't really be as successful in your personal life, professional life, just focusing on one or the other. It's sort of what we call a gentle power. And so that I thought, oh my gosh, that's how I've been sort of, without knowing it, that's sort of how I look at, my professional life, my personal life, my teaching, my advocacy, my business ownership. So that's where SISU, physical therapy, services and mentoring came from. And I realized that I wanted to still see my little small caseload of patients that I consider myself primary care for their movement system. They come to me. In fact, I just finished a patient now who tweaked her neck looking up too much at a museum in a museum, and she called me right away because she's been a patient of mine for 15 years. She called me right away. We got her in right away, and in 2 visits, she has full mobility back. And so we nip it in the bud, we catch it early, and then she's able to continue on in her life as she would like to, in terms of everything, gardening and her fitness and her, entertaining and all of that. So that's super important. So I knew I was going to have that niche of seeing my little cohort of patients. But then I love to teach, as you know. So I'm still involved with the Learn Movement System approach and still involved with some teaching sort of locally. But then I also realized that as a small business owner, it would have been really nice for me to have someone who I could talk to about any variety of business decisions. And I'm not talking about a business coach, that's going to help me fix my bookkeeping or something like that, or help me figure out how to improve my bottom line. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. It's just someone to talk to when you're trying to make big decisions. To me, I feel like that's more of a mentor. And so that's what the role that I play. In fact, when we get off this call, I'm going to be calling one of my business clients because she's trying to present something to her team and she wants to run it past me to make sure that she's kind of has her ideas, kind of straight. So that part I just love. So these 3 things together, it's like the best of the best of everything that I've sort of worked so hard to do in my career, and being able to give back, to this profession. And then that, kind of dovetailed onto what I'm doing in terms of leadership at the state level and at the national level as well.
It's so wonderful. It's like not just one, it's just this impact at so many levels. I think that's so awesome. Now, as you mentioned, you also have many years of teaching experience, and first off, as a clinical faculty member at many notable physical therapy programs in the country, including Washington University in St. Louis. And more recently, you've been helping me with virtual labs whenever we host the Learn Movement System courses. So thank you so much. And what makes you so dedicated to educating others?
Ali, I think it goes back to Steve Rose. First of all, I in PT school, I didn't think to myself, gee, I think I'm serve on the faculty at WashU, back as a brand new graduate, which was hilarious because I looked like I was about 12 years old at that time. And here I am in front of, a classroom of students teaching
Hi,
them.
Carrie. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Your video just froze for like
Uh-oh.
a minute or so.
Uh,
So can we track it back from the Steve Rose story? Because I think you
okay.
were starting to say like, oh, well, in the beginning, I wasn't really thinking I would go into
Okay.
teaching. So we'll just cut this portion out. So sorry. I just want to
Oh,
make
that's
sure
okay.
that your words are all
I,
captured. So.
yeah, I saw
Yes.
I saw your screen freeze and I was like, well, I don't know if I should keep talking or not. So,
Yeah. Okay. So we'll take it back from when you started to mention about Steve Rowe's influence.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Um, yeah, it sort of goes back to when I took my very first job, out of PT school, and Steve Rose gave me the opportunity to teach at Washington University, and that wasn't something that I had planned on. But he was like, "Yep, you're going to do it. This is what when you get hired here, you're considered clinical faculty." So, and I thought maybe I would start with like a really easy course like positioning, turning, and draping or something like that. He gave me shoulder kinesiology. So here I am, brand new PT graduate in front of this classroom of students teaching shoulder kinesiology. And that was my start. So it was like throw you right in. And I was hooked from that point forward. And I think, I had to prepare a lot for that class. Shoulder kinesiology. The shoulder is one of the most complicated regions to talk about from a kinesiological perspective. So I had to prepare a lot. And then I realized how much I loved the preparation because I had to take a deep dive and then I had to get things sort of succinctly sort of framed to be able to deliver that information. Similar to when I wrote my textbooks, you go into these deep dives, but you can't write everything that you read. So you have to distill it down and create something that's meaningful within the time that you have. And so, just between, working on clinical faculties, teaching the continuing education across the country, my cohort, my sidekick for many, many, many years was Cheryl Caldwell. We were like the team that went out there and taught. So that was just so much fun. And then, you know, to today where I am still, actually, I'm going to be doing some adjunct teaching for Tufts University's hybrid program here in Seattle coming up end of 2024 into 2025. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's just that curiosity keeps me on my toes. It makes me stay relevant. It makes me stay on top of things. And whenever you have to explain something back, you realize mid-sentence sometimes that you don't know something. You're like, oh, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. I'm going to have to go back and learn more about this. And I still do that today. So I think that it kind of just keeps your knowledge, keeps you relevant. And I don't want to be one of those instructors that's like, well, back in my day, I want to always stay fresh and, make sure that I'm on top of the latest and greatest information. So I guess it's a little bit self-serving because it keeps my brain working. But I also just love teaching the next generation, especially some of these things that you and I feel are so important in terms of being able to evaluate patterns of movement and be able to recognize those and how are those contributing to the person's functional limitations and how do we train that person, to alter their patterns so that they can improve their function. And then that builds their confidence, which is a beautiful thing. So just being able to see the effects of what we teach, not only to our students, but also to our patients.
Absolutely. I love, when I say education, it's not just like this area of continuing education. It's certainly this one-on-one time, precious moments with our patients. And when their light bulbs are turned on when they actually get it and they are like fully in control of their pain. It's like a reminder to me that this is why I became a physical therapist and is my biggest joy. So, yeah.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, just day in and day out. And the fact that I think the other piece too is that you and I both know that as educators, we love doing the work, underneath it all so that they don't have to. It's like, I'm going to do the work for you, and then I'm going to distill this so that I can give this to you in the most efficient way possible. And like, I love that background work, and then being able to take that and make your life better as a result of this work that I love to do. I think that's at the heart of why I've never sort of let go of being an educator throughout my career.
Yeah, and it's definitely because we've had excellent mentors and teachers who've done the same for us, so
Mhm.
that we could help more people in our community.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I wanted to keep it kind of light at the end. If you could share some fun facts about yourself with the folks watching this video.
Okay. Fun facts. I'm kind of a boring person. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
63
right.
years old, but
Yeah,
I
right. I
keep
don't believe that.
really. Yeah. When I'm 63 years old, I keep myself as physically fit as I can because I'm bound and determined, to show how important movement and physical activity is to our health span. Um, so I'm very, very devoted to my running and my weightlifting, but I also love to, stand up paddleboard and go hiking for sure. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so hiking is amongst my favorite activities during the months that we can do it. I also raised three incredible daughters who are all um, now, none of them went into physical therapy, but one is an environmental engineer, another one is a health scientist and studying Parkinson's disease, and then another one is a health data scientist who's involved in kind of more of the data analysis side of any type of research that her consulting firm is working for. So these three incredible daughters who are the joy of my life. I guess this one thing is not such a fun fact, but it has really provided me with the empathy for my patients. And that is that I have, I told you how physically active I am at age 63, but I also ruptured a lumbar disc when I was 29, so seriously enough that I lost my muscle strength and my sensation in my right calf. And then later, fast forward later in life, I ruptured a disc in my cervical spine, ended up with a cervicogenic frozen shoulder on the right, and then 7 years later on the left. So, and here I am, I have full range of motion, as you can see. I run, I hike, and I'm here to tell you that those types of injuries you can recover from. And so those have really taught me, how scary it is to go through such painful conditions. But that if you stay, here's that SISU part, if you stay in your gentle power, compassionate to yourself, but also pushing yourself, you can get to the other side and have a very functional, very enjoyable, pleasurable life full of movement.
That's a beautiful way to wrap it up, Carrie. An amazing physical therapist, my dear friend. I love getting to know you more, and a proud mother of three who is walking the walk with her healthy, active lifestyle. I really appreciate your time and sharing so many of your stories. Thanks for being here, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome.